Hey, what's up, team? It's Sherman here from Geek Psychology. I got a question about what is the difference between ENFP and ESFP. I guess this is a good follow-up to the ISFP and INFP video that I posted a while back. Because they're the same functions, just all jumbled up, and I guess it'll be kind of easy to ride the same wave and explain how these things work. So I'm going to start with what's a similarity between ENFP and ESFP. And that basically comes down to within their function stack, like their mental wiring, right? The auxiliary and tertiary functions, the second and third functions, are the same. So what that means, and I'll kind of break it down through here, is that, sorry, I don't know what that was. Both EFPs use introverted feeling as their decision-making process. This is a judging function. It's how they decide what they should do. And that is when everything's going well, and they're all kind of balanced out, I guess. They'll go to this introverted feeling function. And what that is basically deciding to do things that are authentic to yourself. And this expands out to other people too. Like, you do you, I do me, we're all happy. Right? It's kind of like just assuming that things will go well if everybody does the right thing for themselves. And if there's some struggle and you have to go with the group, that's sometimes okay too, right? But there's this desire to do what I've decided to personally do based on my values and whatnot, right? So going back and breaking it down a little bit more, introverted functions are subjective. They're based on your past experience and how you've kind of built this structure of understanding the world and how it relates to yourself. And it's feelings. So feelings are about, well, obviously feelings, but also values, right? How you see this object or this person or this interaction and how it has affected you in the past. So both ENFPs and ESFPs use that to make decisions primarily. And it's also a way of teaching other people and helping other people too. The auxiliary function has a lot of that kind of, this is how I help other people. And when people come to me for advice, this is usually what they're trying to get from me, right? And that is this idea of what has the EFP learned through his past or her past experiences, and then they kind of translate that into another understanding for the other person. I hope that makes sense. What would you do in this situation? Well, I, went through something similar to this. So this is kind of how it affected me, and this is what I think you should do based on that. And both ESFPs and ENFPs, when they get a real strong structure and this introverted feeling is really built up and it's been worked on with them, they trust it now, right? They've taken time to step back and really analyze how their decisions impact the long term, right? And their internal understanding of themselves. This is when they get that really strong purpose of knowing who I am, who I'm, interacting with, where I'm going, where I came from, just a real deep sense of self, right? So that's one thing that ENFPs and ESFPs share. So because they share this decision-making function in their auxiliary function, then that means they also share the mirror opposite, the polar opposite, within their tertiary function. So introverted feeling is the auxiliary, and extroverted thinking is the tertiary function. And let's see, where can I go with this? Extroverted thinking is about taking logical, like detached data, right? And using that to make decisions. And everybody can see, these are the numbers, this is the graph, the chart, this is the right step. Let's take that step and let's go forward from there. And when that's finished, then they go on to the next one. It's very like sequential like that. And yeah, they both use that. And so when they kind of get stressed out, both ESFPs and ENFPs, they'll go to this extroverted thinking side, this TE, and they'll just make quick decisions just to get some sort of control in their life, make a quick decision so they don't have to step back and think about how they are personally affected by all these decisions and the whole environment, right? And a lot of times they do that through like a quick ordering or restructuring of the environment, just moving things around. Okay, this is over here now, let's go forward. See what happens. Really don't care about the long term in that sense. And the thing is, though, that the tertiary function is not a really strong function. It's accepted by your ego, right? Like, you turn to it pretty quickly, pretty easily, because it's also extroverted for the ESFP and ENFP. It's the same orientation. So if you are an introvert, it's introverted. If you're an extrovert, it's extroverted. And because of that, like, you want to believe it. You want to think that it's the right thing to do and it knows what's going on and whatnot. And this kind of inflates it and makes it feel like, well, I know what I'm doing. I got all this wisdom, and, it doesn't really work out like that, right? It's just on this lower level of proficiency. Within the system that I use here, it's a newbie, right? So it's like a level 10. It's just not very skilled. But it thinks it is. It's like, man, I got this. I know how this game works. I'm going to go at it. And then it just crashes and it wasn't the right choice, right? But it's not always like that. And it also serves as this relief, right? The problem is when it inflates and when you like, no, I know how to do this. I'm going to go like this and I'm going to make this like really quick decision. And then when it doesn't go too well, or when it starts to shrink back down, that extroverted thinking, then that's when you kind of reach to other people to try to get help, and they can help you make decisions that are kind of more beneficial for you, and get it so you don't need to think about it. Right? I don't know. So I guess that's enough about those two. So those are some of the similarities within the cognitive functions. And now let's go to the ESFP, and we'll think of the dominant function, the hero, as I call it, and it's extroverted sensing. So extroverted sensing is extroverted, so things outside of yourself, and sensory based. So it's looking for tangible, verifiable things that, it can really grasp and get a hold of and really understand. And what sensing does basically is it tells you what something is. It tells you that it exists and what it is, right? And because that's the dominant function for ESFPs, it's a compulsion, right? You just have to get more, you have to use it more and more and more, right? I need to do this. This is how I live. This is how I exist, right? And so you're constantly, as an ESFP, going to seek new tangible sensory experiences, and this can go through through adrenaline and stuff like that too, and just anything that kind of tickles your senses, right? New experiences, different varieties of experiences, right? And whatever can produce a big impact into your senses, okay? New foods and stuff, music, a lot of lights and dancing at the club or whatever it is. I know these are just stereotypes, but I've noticed them to be true quite often. Sports as well. Extreme sports too, sure. Yeah, a lot of that stuff. So basically it's hands-on, it's quick, it just wants a lot of in-the-moment sensory-based details, right? It just tries to pick them all up. And let's see. So the ENFP would be the abstract kind of version of that, right? Because it's extroverted intuition. So it's still looking to the outer world, but this time it's looking at not the actual tangible things like the weight of this thing and the height and the shininess or material. It doesn't care about that. It just wants to know what it could be in a kind of theoretical sense, I guess. So where it's going, where it came from, what it reminds you of, just any sort of kind of fantastical bounce of understanding of what it is. My brown coat over there, I can't point to it like this. There you go. The sensor, the ESFP, would look at the material and the texture and how well it heats you. I guess the insulation. I'm not a sensor, but those kind of things, right? And the ENFP looks at it and is oh, it looks like boar hide. And then, if I could hunt a boar, that'd be kind of fun. Maybe I go out to the woods and chase it around. I bet it'd chase me too. And, just blah, 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 blah. Just kind of bouncing all over the place, right? It's inattentive to details, okay? ENFP is very contextual. So, it's always pinging different areas in the brain, trying to figure out how these ideas can connect and interact, kind of like a spider web, right? Where everything is interconnected and you can sense the fly over here and over here too and bounce around, blah, blah, blah. With Geek psychology, with this whole thing, I've considered it to be like a dwarf, aggressive, offensive dwarf with a shotgun that's shooting out and expanding out into the world, right? It's his weapon anyway. And exploring different situations and running simulations of what things could be. Sorry, I didn't say about the ESFP. I would consider that to be like a dwarf berserker guy with two weapons that's running out there swinging and getting a real feel for the battle and the world itself, feeling the sun on its back or whatever it is, and the clang of the hammer against the armor. Yeah, so this is getting kind of complicated, isn't it? The dominant function also has a mirror opposite that is important for both of these, for us to understand kind of how they're different. So ESFP, extroverted sensing, is the dominant, the hero function. So the inferior function, the one that your dominant function has kind of ignored, like it's pushed you to ignore all this stuff, right? And what that is introverted intuition for the ESFP. So again, intuition is about abstract ideas and connecting different, concepts and whatnot. But it's at an inferior level. Okay, with Geek psychology, I've been saying it's like an escort, like it's an AI bot. You kind of don't have control over it, and sometimes it takes over your whole mission and things go awry. But if you accept it, that it's part of your team and you work with it and you kind of guide it along to get the quest rewards, then everything is good. And that's why it's also called an aspirational function. Because it's something that you aspire to gain control of in your life and to understand better. But, so kind of rewinding a little bit, introverted intuition, it's looking at all these different possibilities and kind of chipping away at them, getting rid of the false possibilities and kind of understanding where things are going in a super long term. And like why they're like this and what the big repercussions are going to be along the way. But for you, it kind of takes you to this realm of paranoia as an ESFP. Probably. There are other ways of going about it, but a lot of times it's just like internal confusion and kind of some paranoia and fear. You don't really know what's going on because you're predicting so far out into the future, and your main strength is looking at what's here and now, right? So when you get, when you can't do what you want to do, you can't do your extroverted sensing type things, right? You can't just jump in there and, ask somebody or interact with somebody to figure out the answers. Then that's when introverted intuition starts acting crazy and confuses you, and maybe you don't really have a good control of or a good understanding of symbolism and deep metaphors and stuff like that. You could, just stereotypically, right? My ESFP friend happens to have that problem every once in a while where he just kind of loses it, and my mom too, and just starts predicting all these bad things that could happen. And it causes a lot of problems for them. And let's see. I think that's enough. Okay. In the Geek psychology system, introverted intuition is kind of like this sentinel elf hunter, very slow, methodical, one shot, one kill, stalking its prey, kind of predicting where things are going and looking for the deep, natural understanding of where it all is going. Okay. The ENFP's inferior function, the escort, is introverted sensing. That's the mirror opposite of extroverted intuition. Once again, it can also be aspirational, but it's where you have a lot of issues, and you've kind of shut experiences out that have to deal with that. Introverted sensing is, I consider to be like an elf guardian, like a tanky warrior that's very stable, kind of protects its allies. It's got this big shield, right? It's not gonna run in there and just cause trouble and stuff and like do kind of what the extroverted sensing, berserker dwarf warrior would do. It wants to make a plan and stick with the plan because everybody understands that this is what we should do and blah, blah, blah. But for you, if you're an ENFP, this can just mess up your whole understanding, right? Because you always want to look for new possibilities and, just take risks and abstract understandings, right? What things could be. But introverted sensing kind of shows you what things are and what they have been for all time, right? And will continue to be. Because it's just this big database of like experiences that are all kind of compiled together in this beautiful, nice, like organized library, and you pull out new information, right? And it's always there. It tells you exactly how things are and where they're going, what they were, how to use them, what authority thinks of them, and all this other stuff, right? Whereas extroverted intuition, your hero, if you're an ENFP, is just collecting all the random data it can and just has this messy ass library of stuff, right? Nobody can really find the information, and you like it like that, right? But introverted sensing is going to cause you probably to withdraw sometimes, not want to interact with other people. And my ENFP friend, when he gets really stressed out and he kind of gets stuck in this introverted sensing side, he starts focusing like a lot on his inner body sensations, and what that usually turns out to be is like, I can't eat. When he gets stressed out, he can't eat. He just like, he'll go for as long as it takes, and he just can't put food in his mouth, literally. Like he'll try to put it in there and it'll stick for a second, and then he'll just be like, oh God, I feel sick. So that's one problem that could happen. Also, it could kind of mess up the ENFP's ability to make decisions, because it feels that, if I make this one choice, then I'm stuck with it forever. I can't adapt anymore. It's going to be a narrowing path and I can't get off of it. So yeah, that was a lot. Real quick, as like a recap, ESFPs and ENFPs share the same decision-making functions. Usually it's what feels right to me. Is this something that I can get behind as myself? Like I'm okay with this decision. When they're kind of stressed out, or they just want to make a quick decision, they want to stay like in that extroverted mentality, both of them will go to extroverted thinking, which is just quick decisions to get things moving that are logic based, not really caring about their own feelings or other people's feelings. And in ESFP is going to be more down to earth, more tangible. They're going to kind of be stuck in the here and now a lot of times, and not really jump from that. Like, now is what matters. Tomorrow, it's not as important, And the ENFP is going to be more kind of, not all the time, but more zany, kind of thinking of different like random possibilities all the time, and not really down to earth at all, just in the clouds, bouncing around. As I always consider a good representation of ENFPs to be Robin Williams. If you watch any Robin Williams video or Craig Ferguson, it's just all over the place, right? You can barely keep up a lot of times, unless you're an ENFP. Then your brain is fast enough to continue with it. But in ESFP could be someone more like Will Smith, like physically entertaining, I guess. He's not like hard to understand where his logic and humor and his thoughts are, right? It's more physical, it's more real, it's more something that everybody can just see and understand. I hope that was helpful. If it wasn't, I'll try to make a new video and see what happens. There's just so much information to put within one video and keep it all succinct, which is something that I suck with. So let me know. Let me know if anything I said kind of struck you as something good or a little confusing, and I'll try to clear it up in the comments. Thanks a lot for watching. Good luck, have fun. See ya.